Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Cindy Daychuk with Queen Bee Creations and we're going to be doing some furniture painting. And in fact, we're going to do a little project. So we've got this little cutie, this little table that I picked up from the thrift store for $3.50. Not bad. Now, it needed a little bit of repair, but really this was starting to split. It just needed some glue and some clamping. It's done, it's nice and sturdy. That's all it took. So we're gonna be doing a couple of things. The painting is the quick part of this. Just something I wanna try on the top of it. We'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, what I am gonna do is I'm gonna do a base coat of mermaid tail from DIY, which is kind of like a dark turquoise. Don't worry, we're going light on top of that. And what I have is lemon drop from Sweet Pickins milk paint. So this is a milk paint. I'm gonna mix it up first because I prefer for it to have a chance to kind of sit for about 20-30 minutes before I start painting with it. And that's perfect because that's how long this is gonna take to dry. I'm gonna have to flip the table over, etc. But regardless, we'll get this mixed up and then we'll get it soaking. So milk paint, if you haven't tried it before, comes in a powder form. You mix what you need as you go. So it's perfect because it's shelf stable, no more going in and finding all your paint has dried out on you. I like to mix it with hot or warm water. I just find it mixes easier. And typically you are mixing it 50-50. You could make it thinner. Let's start a little bit smaller because this is a small piece. I don't need tons. You could thin it out and use it as a stain, which is perfect. Sweet Pickins milk paint is also food grade, so you can use it on items that are going to be going into your kitchen. You're good. So look at that bright sunshiny yellow. I just want the piece to be kind of cute when we're done. So I do have a whisk. Actually, I thought I had a whisk. I did. I just didn't stop to look for it. Okay. So you just want to get it all mixed up. And I just find that if I put it off to the side, first I find the warm water, it mixes better. And secondly, if I mix it, put it off to the side, then the milk solids have more of a chance to absorb in and it's not as lumpy. If I'm mixing up a bigger batch of it because I'm doing it on a bigger project, I will use an immersion blender. And then I let it sit to let the foam go down because it gets very foamy, but it gets rid of any of the paint chunks and things, so it's a smoother. So I'm just putting that off to the side because we are going to paint it with our mermaid tail first. Now, I always paint it upside down first, and then I flip it over and then I'll paint the tops, just so that I get a nice even finish. Easiest way to do the legs. It's just how I do it. So I'm gonna get a coat of the mermaid tail on because this is just our undercoat, it's not our finished coat. I'm just gonna do one. So I'm gonna get one coat on both sides of this before I look at mixing up my milk paint again and applying it. Now that my blue has dried, pretty much, I'm able to start to add my milk paint. And I just give it a little bit of a stir, and we're just going to paint that on over the top, let it dry briefly, and then paint a second coat over that. And keep our fingers crossed that we get some chipping. Our piece is pretty much dry, and you can see, hey, we're getting tons of chipping here, right? Like it's already falling off the base and other places, right? So the job now is to lightly sand this and see how much chipping we've got. Get those loose flakes off and see what we're looking at. All right, we got tons of awesome chipping on this. We've got sections where that turquoise is popping through, tons of sections where it chipped right down to the wood, which I love, and we've got some spots that are just good crackling. The next thing that I want to do is I'm going to put it here, and I'm going to bring you over to the other camera so that you can see down. All right, what I've got laid out here are some elements, a couple of blooms and leaves from the chrysanthemum stamp from IOD. Now, I was lazy and I didn't go and get the masks out for these, so we're just stamping as is. I'm taking this off and I'm going to move those out of the way. I've got my black ink. That I think has enough juice in it. Get it nice and covered here. And then we are going to stamp this design onto my tabletop. Now, I want to get as many of those lines as possible, so I'm going to try and keep it from shifting. And there we go. There's our first chrysanthemum stamp. I'm going to get the others on, and then I'm going to leave this to dry. I want this ink to be thoroughly dry before we begin the next step. What I got here are some DIY colors. I have Fancy Farm Girl and Mint Chip, beadboard, Cowgirl Coral, Petticoat Pink, and Cake Batter. And the idea now is that I'm going to use this as my guide for painting my flowers. Now, because this milk paint hasn't been sealed, and this is the next day, so it's already chipping some more from when I left it last night, I don't want to paint too wet because the water's going to reactivate it and it's going to just chip again. So I am going to wet my brush a little bit, but I am just going to give a little bit of color to this. Now, you could paint thick and just paint right over those lines. You could use those lines as, you know, guides and have them in. I'm not worrying about it one way or the other. If the black shows through, I'm going to heavily distress this afterward, so it'll all be okay. So all I'm doing now is painting. What I will do though is put on a little bit of paint like this, and the reason that I've got that other green is because I can then mix it a little bit, and I can add just a little bit of shading here and there, just for a little bit of interest, so it doesn't seem just quite so flat or quite so uniform. And again, this is perfect for those of us that don't feel comfortable just going at it and painting flowers and leaves all over our piece on our own. Use the stamps. You know, DIY has amazingly wonderful stamps. They're highly detailed, and you can do this. Now, if I chose, I could paint over the whole thing so you can't see any of the black lines in it, and then I could stamp over top of it again to be able to add those lines if I wanted to. So you've got a lot of options, but it's a fun way to be able to add some hand-painted artwork to your piece when you get to avoid doing the actual drawing yourself. Well, I can feel that we got a lot more crackle happening because of our paint. So I'm going to lightly sand this, and then I am going to seal it with some DIY clear wax, and then this baby is done, but I'll show you how much of it is left because it really liked chipping. And here's our finished little piece. Now, I'm not going to list this for sale until after the wax is fully dried. I will probably, once it's dry in a couple of days, I will add another coat just to kind of, minimize some of the chipping. But, this is the beauty and the frustration of milk paint, that sometimes you get tons of chipping and sometimes you don't get much. Now, I did get additional chipping on the top, which I like because it chipped off some of where we had painted some of the flowers and leaves, which again just makes it look like it was original to the piece, and over the years it's kind of worn and kind of chipped off. So there's times where we're seeing the dark wood, but you're probably not capturing it so much here, but around the edges you're seeing all that dark turquoise, and there's spots where that's coming through, and that's kind of the advantage of painting that color underneath. Sometimes you'll see big patches of it. Other times it'll chip right past it to the wood, but you'll get like the edging is all outlined in that original color, which I just love. So couple of things here in this video today is obviously getting to be a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more familiar with milk paint. I fully understand that there's some people that this piece would give them an eye twitch because they like uniformity. They don't like the chippiness. So this project's not for you, but this technique might be. You can use your stamp and then paint in your stamp. So you can use your stamp almost like as a paint by number kit. Whether you're doing that on a piece of furniture or you're doing it on maybe a tray of some sort, you can use it as your guide, so that if you're not great at drawing flowers, you can stamp your flowers on and then you can paint them and have a totally hand-painted look. As always, love to hear from you. Let me know what you think of this one, guys, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Take care.